I think most churches who are aware of this, church leaders, their kind of initial instinct is to say, what can we do to attract them? And that's the number one mistake, okay? Because that's based on the old way of thinking. You know, in the old way of thinking, if you don't go to church on Sunday, you don't belong. So the thing to do was to go to church. The question is, where do I go, right? So church's way of thinking was that if we do our music better, they will come. It's a competitive model. If we have a better organ, they will come. If we're more friendly, they will come, right? But that's not the world today. They don't need to go to church to belong today. And so we need to rethink about, number one, to be aware that there are people who are different from us. The paradox of this is that the first step is for church leaders to know who we are. We need to know who we are as Episcopalian, as Christian in the world today that we're living in today. Okay, because when we attempt to relate to people who are different from us, and when we are trying to be different so that they like us, in today's world, that's being perceived as being dishonest. That's being perceived as you're not being authentic. Okay, and the paradox of all this today is you got to know who you are and be yourself. You get to be the best Episcopalian that you can be. You know, knowing that, looking like me, I am an Anglican, and be proud of that, you know, and not, be so aggressive and say, but to say, this is who I am, be sure that I am this way, and looking like you do, and speaking the kind of the languages that you know, and say, I'm an Episcopalian, and be really sure of that, and be able to be articulate about that. That's the first step. We cannot relate to people unless we know who we are. Reason why? Okay, if we don't know who we are, okay, and I think a lot of Episcopalian I run into have a hard time explaining why they're Episcopalian. Okay, that's why often one of the images that we have out there is that, oh, they're the wishy-washy Christian. They're not really Catholic, they're not really Protestant. What are you, right? And we need to learn to know who we are, because the more we know who we are, the less likely we would be afraid or threatened when we encounter others who are different. When we don't know who we are, and then when we attempt to relate, right, and discover that the other person is really very different from me, and if I were to accept you who are different, and if I don't know who I am, I'm going to be pretty fearful that I'm going to lose who I am. Right? And it played out in really real terms, in many of the churches that I've encountered, where they, in all good intention, right, welcome a group of people into their midst, like a Hispanic community or Chinese ministry in the church, because that community started growing really fast, and they smell different. The food is different. The way they're very loud when they come to worship. They're different. And if I, as a long-time Episcopalian in the same place, and if I don't know who I am, or not conscious and know who I am, I'm going to look at this growing community and I'm going to lose my church to these people. And with that fear, that's it. No matter how hard you try to say that you want to, reach out and connect with people who are different, that fear is going to stop you. right? So learning who you are, being articulate, that's the first step. And then once you kind of build that, your own kind of self-esteem about your faith esteem, right? Is that such a word? Faith esteem? Then you're ready to really make connection and say, and connect with others as who you are. And also, knowing who you are, you can be flexible. Because there's a thing in intercultural work, what we call being able to be, to shift my behavior. To make connection with other people, but without losing who I am. Okay, and in order to be able to do that, again, I'm going to go back to you got to know who you are.